Our second keynote is he contributes to Forrester's offerings for security and risk professionals. His research guides client initiatives dealing with security operations, planning and optimization, counter threat operations, encryption, network security, and zero trust concepts. The one cool thing, I shouldn't say the one cool thing, the really cool thing that he also did is he created a comic book for kids related to cybersecurity called Cynja, C-Y-N-J-A. Look that up, it is pretty cool. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Chase Cunningham.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. That was a little bit of a dig, the one cool thing I've done. That's how we're going to start off? All right, fine. So very quickly, I've been giving speeches all over the country right now, and yesterday I was flying from one place to another place, and I landed, and I got off the plane, and my brain said, Carolina, like Charlotte, whatever, that's North Carolina, I'm here. Got to the car, put in my Uber thing, and I was like, Raleigh, Marriott City Center, and it says 3 hours and 40 minutes, and I was like, nope. And by then my plane had left. So I had to go get a car and drive here. So it's been one of those weeks. And the best part about it was I had to call my kids today and say, I'm driving home, so I'm going to be late for trunk or treat. If you ever done that to an 8 and a 10-year-old, yeah, it just goes bad quick. So I think my Dad of the Year mug went in the trash when I did that. So we're going to talk about how to be a hard target. What we see in cyberspace and in the news a lot is all about the bad, the evil, the malicious stuff, like how nasty this is. I'm going to talk real briefly about just some of those realities, but then I'm going to move into how I want, hopefully for you, especially those of you that are like small business owners, to think a little bit differently about the realities of this problem. It's a different twist, and I was told I could have whatever fun I wanted with my slides, so I brought in as much like 90s action heroes as I could. If Ron Burgundy says it, we all know it must be true. I'm Ron Burgundy, right? Everyone's already been hacked. I've got research that I'm getting ready to publish right now where I actually spent like 3 months counting through all of the passwords and usernames that are known to have been compromised, that are out there that are publicly available. It's about 3 billion. So literally, unless you employ almost every person on the planet, the reality that there is some sort of user-based or username or password-based compromise in your network is pretty much a guarantee. There's only a few 100 million Americans. If you do the math, like by just default statistics, sooner or later there has to be a compromised username and account. We've all been hacked, and guess what? Most of us are still standing. I've had my credit card compromised. Luckily, all they could do is add to my debt. I don't care anyway. And it's because exploitation is child's play. We've changed the game last year when we started to see NSA-level exploits being leaked and put out on the public internet. Bluekeep, all those things that came out that were supposed to be leaks for the common good, that was a really bad thing. As a matter of fact, I almost screwed up today when I came in and I gave the guy at the back who was kind enough to put the AV stuff together, I gave him my USB because it had my speech on it. In my sleep deprivation, I forgot that that was my malware USB. And it has Bluekeep and all these other things on it, and he plugged it in, and I was like, oh my God. Luckily, he clicked on North Carolina PowerPoint, not something else. But that's literally the equivalent of military-grade weaponry being delivered to every human being on the planet. It's out there, like it's publicly available. You do not have to have a computer science degree, be a crypto nerd, be a super hacker or whatever to do exploitation anymore. Grandma can do it at home if she spends enough time on YouTube. If she's really lazy, she can go buy someone on the underground and have them do it for her. Like exploitation is child's play. It's everywhere. It's prolific. It's not the end of days because we're all still here. We've survived. Lights are still on. That means the good fight is being fought. But realize this, exploitation is child's play. This is prolific. It is everywhere. If you're still thinking about having a secure perimeter, you're wrong. The concept of the perimeter has categorically failed. We've done studies and we've got research that backs this up. It's about 85% of the people we talk to that are security leaders flat out say that the concept of perimeter security no longer viable. The moment that you have someone log on from home on a PC that you don't necessarily manage, maintain, and control, and you don't know what their kids have been doing on that PC and what stuff is running on it, and it pipes into your network via VPN and all those other things, that perimeter's been obliterated. When I walk out of here and I take my phone and I log in somewhere else, the perimeter goes with me. The perimeter has been effectively negated. I love doing penetration tests and red teams on individuals that say we have a really good secure perimeter. I have a DJI Mavic drone that's got a Wi-Fi pineapple on the bottom of it. I like to land it on the roof and look for wirelessly enabled printers. Your perimeter goes where my drone is. Do not think that you can live in a world with a secure perimeter and be safe. Don't think that auditing that perimeter is going to keep you safe. An auditor will come by and they will shake that chain, and then they'll send you a bill and say, you're good, your perimeter's safe, secure, check, check. If there's any auditors in here, don't knife me in the parking lot. But the bad guys that know what they're doing will come by, they will snip that clip, they will walk in, they'll put this thing back together, they'll clip it, and they'll keep on going. Auditing will not save that secure perimeter. You've got to dial in. You've got to be more focused, dialed into what the individuals are doing, the entities. That's where security actually matters. Luckily, technology now makes this possible. Folks have always said that cybersecurity is not really tangible. Like, we don't know about how bad this can be. We're not really sure if like this whole security cyberspace thing is going to matter. You're talking about taking care of networks. Everybody's been already breached. Like I just said that. It's really whatever. We went kinetic this year. Is anybody familiar with what happened with Israel and Hamas? Hamas pissed off the Israelis because they kept hacking something they didn't want them to hack. And the Israelis, which actually is pretty awesome, they were like, you know what, we're going to fix this cyber problem, and then when we fix it, we're going to send a missile downrange and take out the entire building where those guys work. The Israelis, they failed recess, they don't play. But they basically said, we're going kinetic. So the days of folks thinking that cyberspace and cyber warfare is just this thing that geeks engage in and do CTFs and Black Hat and DEF CON and show up and whatever else, like those have changed. The fact that this year, we saw a nation state engage another nation state, and the nation state that was not happy with the way things were going killed human beings, means that we've crossed the chasm. Kinetic cyber warfare, cyber outcomes are coming. Be aware of it. Like, this is why we should start thinking about how important this whole thing is. This is why you should be talking about your family, your kids, your workers, everybody that you talk to should know just how real, how impactful this whole cyber thing is going to be. Folks tell me all the time during workshops that we're compliant. I'm a biker. I ride a Harley. When I go out on my Harley, I wear a full-face helmet. I've got leathers on. I'm prepared for the road. I want as much cow between me and the asphalt if something goes wrong, because I'd rather have the cow's hide laying on the road, not mine. But I also realize the reality of the space in which I operate in is that at some time, sooner or later, something bad is going to happen. I'm probably going to go down. I think about the realities of acting and being secure in that space. I do not rely on being compliant. Compliant would be this. Now, number one, that guy is probably fully compliant. Number two, if he does get pulled over for an issue, it's going to be for public indecency, and then they're going to ask him where his wallet is, which is a whole other level. But the point of doing more than compliance is you want to survive. This is about you being a harder target. Don't settle for the bar. Compliance, auditing, that stuff is great. You need it. It is absolutely essential. You got to have it to do business. I am a huge fan of compliance. I'm a huge fan of auditing because it's there. It's a necessary process. However, don't stop at being compliant. Bad guys, red teamers, pen testers, they love compliant environments because what are you doing when you've just passed that compliance test? For the next few weeks or months, you're sitting around chilling. That's the perfect time. You're laying there on the sun with your underbelly exposed. All they got to do is come up and... Don't settle with going bare-ass naked with a helmet on down the road at 70 miles an hour. Sooner or later, you're going to come off, and you don't want to look like what that guy will look like. His tattoos probably won't even survive. The space that we operate in, everybody also thinks that, well, fines are going to start changing behavior. I think that may be Mark Zuckerberg's picture right there. Fines are not going to change behavior. Everybody recalls Equifax, right? Equifax was the mega breach. All of us have been compromised by Equifax. The execs are evil. They've, ruined our futures and et cetera. Guess what? Their CEO and their CISO got multi-million-dollar payouts when they left. The total amount of money that they put in to respond for all that fining was about $40 million bucks. The CEO's bonus alone was about half of that. So fines will not change behavior. Marriott, the other mega breach that everyone was familiar with, hundreds of millions of people's information, et cetera. We're going to fine you until we can't fine you no more. Did the math on it, the amount of money that they will put in based on restitution from it, they literally spend more money on procuring toilet paper for their hotels. Right? Fines will not change behavior. Don't count on regulators and fines and the government and legislation to come in and all of a sudden push everyone forward because we're going to fine them. GDPR is now the thing in Europe. How many mega fines that have shut down corporations have you seen that have been issued in Europe based on GDPR? Nope. Fining will not change behavior. It's incumbent upon those of us that are in the practitioner world to start acting differently to change behavior. We can do this. Most of us live in this world, especially the small and mid-sized businesses. Jurassic Park, they literally recombined DNA and created dinosaurs, but they had one dude running the entire network. They had unlimited resource, spared no expense, one IT guy, and he was the guy that was the insider threat that wound up stealing their stuff and trying to sell it anyway, because no one was paying attention to him. If Samuel L. Jackson can't survive there, no one else will. This is what you wind up looking like, but this is okay. The difference being, if you notice what happened and all that stuff going on in Jurassic Park, everything was run by this one IT guy, but he had all the trust. He was given keys to the kingdom, and he managed, maintained, and controlled that infrastructure ruthlessly because he could tell people, like, you don't know what this is. Like, get out of my way. I know what that does. I'll fix it. Nope, I got it. I'll take care of it. He had admin creds to everything. He was the problem. He was the insider threat. If you're operating in that manner, you're doing something wrong. Tangentially to that, if you have one IT guy, luckily, if you walk the floor, you'll notice that there's lots of vendor solutions out there that enable you to do more with less. There is not necessarily a human capital crisis in cybersecurity. There is a crisis in leveraging technology intelligently to solve the problem based on scale. Automation exists. Machine learning, I don't say AI because it's not AI. Machine learning is there to enable you to get to those things. You can have one IT person, one security person do the work of 3 or 4 or 7 or 10, depending on how you leverage those solutions and how you apply it to the problem. That perimeter-based approach that we have winds up leaving us just looking like this, where we've built the fences, we've built the wall, it's there, we feel like there's something on that border, but the reality of it is what that's done is just push the border outward. If you live in a world where you're focused on security at the edge, if you've got really high firewalls, et cetera, it's not news to you that there are holes. And everyone will tell you, you've probably heard it 10,000 times today, all it takes is one for them to get through. That's the reality of the space in which we operate. That doesn't mean that we have to give up the fight. That means that there's a different way to approach it. That means we have to think about it differently. But if we do it differently, we can start to gain ground. Now we start getting into action movie heroes. Understand that cyberspace is actually a combat domain. In 2009, the US Department of Defense declared cyberspace a war-fighting domain. What does that mean? That means that every electron that you send, every time your kid logs in, your Xbox, your Nest, your wirelessly enabled toilet, your grandma, pawpaw, everyone that's on the internet is transiting a live fire combat environment where every nation on the planet is engaged in espionage and warfare. That's where your business sits, is inside of that combat zone. No one in their right mind would uproot your business right now and go to downtown Syria and stick your business there and think that you would do well. That's what you're living in a combat space. That's what's going on in cyberspace. This is a warfare fighting domain. Stop thinking about cyberspace as what you use to go on Rotten Tomatoes and bash Captain Marvel movies. It's a war fighting domain. I've been to war. I'm sure there's lots of people in here, being in the area that we're at, that have been to war. Once you've gone and you hear those sounds and you realize when people leave, they don't come back from missions that went wrong, it changes your perspective on operating in a war-fighting domain. All you want to do is get the hell out of there. If that was the way that we saw things in cyberspace, it would change our approaches. There would be no more sitting around waiting for things to happen. It is a scary, terrifying space, but it is a space that you can operate in, just like you can operate in a war-fighting domain out there outside the wire if you approach it intelligently. Probably will have a bad day here and there. The likelihood of something going wrong is extremely high. However, as long as you survive and at the end of the mission you get back and you can go to Burger King, things have gone pretty well. Sweat equity in this space pays off. It's hard to believe that that's Gerard Butler. I think that was like 12 months between the movie and when he was drinking beer or something. But the sweat equity in cybersecurity will pay off. What do I mean by that? Well, just like Gerard had to do, you've got to have a plan. You've got to have a strategy. You've got to have metrics, and you've got to have somebody that's guiding that process. When they were getting ready for 300 and he signed his contract, he was like, cool, I finally get to do a major motion picture. This is going to be great. And then they started reading through what they had to do for the workouts to get ready for the movie. And he said in his interview, he was like, I think I'm going to die. But the point was, their trainer said, look, for the next X number of months, I'm going to tell you when to eat. I'm going to tell you when to sleep, how much to lift. I'm going to tell you what to lift. I'm going to tell you where to go. Like, you will follow this program. And because you will follow this program, and because I'm not going to let you deviate from it, I will drag you kicking and screaming towards success. And Gerard went from that, or in your case, that, to that, and he didn't have a choice. That's what you want to do in cyberspace. When you're leading these things, you want to be that individual that's saying, look, here's our plan, here's our metrics, here's where we're going to go. I see the vision at the end of this. Follow me, do what I'm telling you, because I'm a security professional, I know what I'm doing, and I will make sure that you succeed. As a matter of fact, I will not allow you to fail, because if you fail, I fail. And if I fail, we fail. And that can't happen. There is value to deterrence. You want to be bigger and stronger and badder than the next dude down the block. This is not a zero-sum game. Who do you want to fight? Ralph Macchio with the crane kick, right? Or Brock Lesnar? If I put you in a room and I said, you got to pick one, pretty sure you'd be like, Ralph, let's go. 6'4", 280 pounds, MMA, Olympic class wrestler, probably rip your head off, or Ralph with a crane kick. The point being, deterrence in this space has a lot of value. I don't need to be perfect. I don't need to be awesome. Pretty sure Brock Lesnar can't do a crane kick. Doesn't have to. But the point is, when I look at the two people that I want to fight, I'm not picking that dude, because he's big and he's strong and he's tough and he's tattooed. If our networks look like that, big, strong, tough, hard to get into, nowhere to laterally move, we don't share passwords, all those things that we shouldn't do, it makes you a harder target, it makes you bigger. The bad guys will go somewhere else. They'll go after Ralph Macchio. And it's okay if you see Ralph over there getting the crap kicked out of him, as long as you're standing there like Brock Lesnar, like, sorry, Ralph, should have lifted, dude. Point is, deterrence matters. Be the Brock Lesnar. Make your system that big, that strong, that scary, and the bad guys will go somewhere else. That's what you want. Get to the chopper. I've always wanted to do that. Realize that you're on your own. In one of my favorite movies of all time, right? Arnold's out there, and slowly everybody gets picked off, and ultimately it boils down to just him. And it's him against an alien. And Arnold's best strategy is, I'm going to smear myself in mud and hit him with sticks. But it works because Arnold realized he was on his own. The only thing I can do is realize that it is me out here, and if it takes sticks and mud and strategy and a little bit of change in tactics to beat these bad guys, to beat this bad guy, I'm gonna win. But I'm not gonna rely on somebody coming in to help me out. The chopper didn't show up till the very end of the movie. They couldn't get him there. Arnold took care of business on his own. He figured out how to do it. This is the space that you operate in. Don't rely on auditors and cyber insurers. How many folks in here have bought cyber insurance? It's all right, everybody's like, bro. Even the insurer guys are like, shh, don't say that. Norsk Hydro, which is pretty synonymous with ransomware, they got hit last year. Their insurer, big time insurer. They've lost about $70 to $80 million a quarter because of that ransomware event. You know how much their insurance payment has been so far? $3 million. You think your business would survive if you were able to take in that fraction from your insurance provider because of an exploit that was that bad? Don't rely on that. Don't think that the insurance folks are going to be there. You ever heard of an exclusion clause in insurance? In cyber, it's really awesome. They say things like, well, if we figure out you haven't patched your network, and that's where they came in, exclusion. Sorry about your luck. There's even been instances of folks that have bought policies, and then they've been hacked by a ransomware group out of Russia or Ukraine, and the insurance provider comes back and says, well, there's this thing called the war exclusion, and those folks are at war, and they hacked you, therefore you're excluded, so tough. The point is, don't rely on having that policy. Don't rely on somebody else taking care of your stuff. Be like Arnold. Figure out how to do it with whatever you've got available. Figure out how to take it to the enemy and make sure that you're the one that's able to say, get to the chopper at the end of the thing. That's twice. I told you I had lots of 90s action heroes in here. Equip effectively but minimally. Blade, another great flick. Blade's fighting vampires. He doesn't go in with stuff that he doesn't need. Half of it is basically fists and fast cuts on the movie screen, but he goes in there with the weapons he needs to defeat the enemy he's going to face, and he uses the bare minimal stuff. Why? Because he knows he has to move fast. That's the same thing that we all need to be able to do. Think about it in the terms of all the applications you have running on end user devices that you've given them. How much of that stuff do they actually use? Most of us probably could dial down to about 3 to 5 applications in use for our jobs any day of the week. Me personally, Outlook, PowerPoint, and Word. Maybe Chrome. Everything else on my endpoint should be shut off because I don't need it. And if I do happen to get compromised, all that application stuff is probably the avenue for exploitation anyway. Shut it off. Dial it back. Application whitelisting. Super simple, can take care of all that. Think about the other things that you need to get away from. If you can get to a virtual desktop, if you can get everybody running on Chromebooks and just let Google take care of the cloud for you, make them live in there, minimal. If that machine happens to get compromised, which is almost impossible, I'll ship you a new $240 Chromebook. I don't want to buy you another super expensive Dell, Intel, Pentium 5, whatever, that's only being used for Bitcoin mining anyway because you got compromised. Think about equipping minimally but effectively. Use what you need to solve the problem, and don't go out there and buy everything all the time because it's sexy and cool. Like the more you see autonomous AI-powered ninja, whatever, cyber something or other, you should probably be like, that sounds like something that's not necessarily minimally or extremely effective. Think about that as you procure solutions and as you put them in place. Be like Blade. Don't do your taxes like him, but be like Blade. One piece of equipment he should have had was a calculator. I want you to think about going out there and getting your ass kicked. If you've never actually had your ass kicked, and I have, right, you learn something from it. I learned not to mess with another guy's girl. If you've ever had your ass kicked, you learn really quickly what to look for, what to notice. You start seeing that you replay that thing in your head repeatedly and you go, okay, I should have done this differently. I should have planned for that. I should have known that that dude would kick me in the shins or something like that. Or, oh my gosh, this guy came at me with a pipe. Like, you should know that things are going to change. And the way that you do that is getting your ass kicked, and it's got to hurt. In other words, the training that you put your people through for cybersecurity and those sorts of practices can't just be, don't click on the kitty picture. Can't just be, oh, we had a phishing test. It can't just be that way. It's got to hurt. If you're not using virtualization and you're not using cyber ranges to actually test your infrastructure as well, you're not doing it right. That training should take place. You should train the infrastructure. You should beat it up. There's stuff out there like there's open source tools like Infection Monkey that you can run inside of a network that will do automated penetration testing for you and tell you just how screwed up your network is. And the cost to you is zero. But you got to go off and hurt that network, and you got to be willing to live with it. Use virtualization. That's what it's there for. It's there to make that pain a little bit less painful. And the other thing you have to think about, too, is when you're repeatedly getting your ass kicked, there's probably somebody that's got to go. I just left doing a workshop with a Fortune 50 company, and they just did a phishing exercise, and then they got hit. And when they asked the IT guy why he opened the phishing email, he said, well, I want to see what's inside it. Like, what? Yeah, he said, well, I knew it was a phishing email. I just want to see what it did. Like, a hand grenade blows up, bro. Like, don't do that. But they had to get rid of the dude. Like, and that's where you may be. If you remember in Rocky 3, Adrian's with him, and he's training and training and training. He's getting his ass kicked. And finally, Adrian's like, look, I'm holding you back. I'm messing this thing up. I got to go. And he lets her go, and what happens? He comes back and fights Clubber Lang, and everything goes well and whatever. Point is, if you have those individuals that are making the ass kicking worse in your organization, don't continue to allow that to propagate. This is about securing your business, your enterprise, your future. If you're dead weight, be gone. This was before he discovered donuts. But he's an Aikido master. His best thing is he can turn their strengths against them. Every movie he's in, he's either breaking arms, he's throwing people out of windows or something like that, or it's usually CIA and drug dealers too. But if you look at what he does, he takes their strength and turns it against them. Steven Seagal, before he ate his body weight in donuts, was not a big dude that could really take on folks. Basically, all he did was ran them into each other. If you can do that in cyberspace, think about things like removing the privileges that the bad guys would use to cause detriment to your organization. How many folks in here have administrative privileges on a machine that they use for business purposes? You should all raise your hands because you're liars, right? Most of us have got administrative privileges. Most of us use shared passwords somewhere. I've used a shared password. Most of us, when we look at our networks, see that there are applications that talk to applications that we didn't necessarily know were communicating. We see databases talking to apps that we didn't know. Take those things away from the bad guys. Those are their strengths. That's what they want you to do, because when they get in, which that gate earlier showed you will happen, you need to be able to turn that stuff back on them. If you can use detection technology, if you can use deception stuff, great, use it. Point being, figure out what the likelihood is and the avenues for exploitation, start dialing in on those and fixing them technically, and then take away the strength from the bad guy. Funnel them into an area where you can have control. If you can do that, you can be like Seagal and throw them out the window when that engagement is over. Just don't grow a ponytail. Plan for the long fight. Chuck Norris has been in action movies since like Celluloid was out there. His first action movie was actually 1969. It was before that Bruce Lee thing. This dude has been doing action movies, and he is considered to be one of the baddest men on the planet because he's planned for the long fight. He still is in shape. He still is there. He's still out there engaged. Like, this guy leads expos. I just watched a thing with him showing people how to do judo and jujitsu, and he's like 1,000. Plan for the long fight. Like, be realistic and understand that what you're getting engaged in right now is going to continue for the next X number of years. The more technology we have, the more users we have, the more solutions we have, the faster we go online, 5G, LTE, qubits, all this other stuff, we're gonna be here for a long, long time. Prepare for that. Start thinking about, how will I be good to go in 2030? You may not have specific line items within a compliance document. You may not have a very specialized router configuration or firewall that will apply in 2030, but start planning and thinking about, how can I be like Chuck? I want to be fight ready 1,000 years from now. One of the greatest action stars, arguably, in history, started out as a dancer, right? Precision equals power. Bruce Lee, not a big guy. No one would jump into the ring with that dude because he'll break you in half. His whole thing was about precision equaling power. Have you ever seen the 6-inch punch demonstration where he sends people across the floor with a 6-inch punch and he weighs like 100 pounds soaking wet? That's all because of the precision he could put in and deliver the power. That's what we're talking about when we get into analytics in cyberspace. Your precision, your power comes from knowing what's going on, comes from understanding the baseline. If you're looking for anomalies before you've established the baseline and you know what the power is, where that precision should lie, you're only alerting because of an alert. I've actually been to organizations and done workshops with them where when I start asking them about how precise their analytics are, their SOC says that they have on average 7,000 to 10,000 alerts a day per operator. Per operator, 7,000 to 10,000 alerts per day. No human being in history can respond to that. Once they start dialing it back and they really focus on very precise, very useful analytics that will result in an outcome, AKA power, all of a sudden those numbers go through the floor and they actually start fixing the problem. They dial in on what matters and they can combat it. Think about using precision, analytics, insight, baselines to equal power so that you can deliver that 6-inch punch. Another great action flick, Wonder Woman. Those of us that are security professionals got to stop sitting in the trenches. I've been a red teamer and a pen tester. One of my favorite things to do when I went on a red team event was do what we were going to do, know we had an avenue sitting there, and just wait and drink Cokes and just watch. We were just waiting for the bad thing to go over so that we could laugh about it. We can't do that anymore. If you're a security professional, if you know what you're doing, if you're a leader in your organization, if you have a plan, if you have a strategy, if you're better than somebody else, do like she did in the movie and say, I'm sick of you guys sitting here waiting for stuff to happen. I'm going forward. I'm going to show you how to do this. She didn't have exact great strategy. She ran out in the middle of a World War I battlefield, but she knew that she was better than the folks behind her, and she was willing to get into the fight. And she took it out there, and she brought it to them, and guess what? Everybody else followed along because that's inspiring. If you're a security professional and you know what you're doing, don't have that attitude of sitting there going you know what, I'm just going to wait and see what happens. I told y'all to patch that thing. This is your business. You're engaged in this. You should be part of that. Don't sit there in the trenches and wait for the bad stuff to happen. If you think you've got a plan, if you know what you want to do, if you've got a strategy, and you feel like you need to inspire folks so that they'll actually follow along, get up, run out on the battlefield, let some of the stuff fall where it may. They'll follow you. People gravitate to those of us willing to take risks and lead from the front, especially in a combat, live fire environment. You want to follow the first person through the door. If you do that, if you engage in those practices and you really think about cybersecurity a little bit differently, you can ultimately earn your sweet war mullet. Love that haircut. And you can be a harder target. You got to put those things in place. You got to put that practice in place. Start wrapping your head around that strategy. Start leveraging technology that will enable you to operate like these heroes from cinema. So start thinking about the ways to earn that mullet, to put in the reps, to buy the stuff that you need, to focus on effectiveness, to have really good analytics, to take the fight to the enemy, and know that you're on your own, and you can start being a hard target. Thank you very much.